My name is Autumn Scarlett Harrison, and I argue with the dumbest comments on the planet. I'm mostly focused on trans issues for what I assume are obvious reasons. Now, I don't necessarily intend to convince the authors of the world's dumbest comments to adopt my positions. Instead, I want to shut them down as quickly and as effectively as possible and get them to spin their wheels, making it painfully obvious that they don't know how to counter the points made. Well, that's usually obvious to us, but I want to make it painfully obvious to people that aren't already intimately familiar with trans issues as well. Now, my arguments are thereby largely conceptual and observational. This is an advantage because little to no science is required, which means the arguments are much easier and quicker to convey and are based on things that often we can figure out and just see in the world. That's not always going to be true. I will have to invoke a little bit of science, but I think it'll be pretty minimal overall. Now, if this can help reduce anti-trans recruiting power, that would be fucking great. But that's actually not the goal of the channel. The goal is to find what is most effective at shutting down the planet's dumbest comments. And so I imagine gathering data about different types of replies to a given position, or different responses, and evaluating them for their success in terms of, say, minimizing responses or maximizing ridiculous responses that are really obvious in contrast with the comment. Now, this is an important thing to mention. Their replies are almost always ridiculous. That's no doubt true. I acknowledge that, but what I want is to make it really clear from the comment, the type of comment made, how obvious it is that they don't know how to respond. Sometimes if the comment that they're responding to isn't itself overly clear, it's going to look kind of grayish to outside observers. So I want to prevent that and evaluate what gets that contrast to stand out the absolute most. So, in light of that, I'm going to present my arguments, both in video format, but also my written responses that we'll make sure are always less than 2 tweets length. And yes, they can be complete. We're not responding to complex arguments here, so that's actually enough to do it. And so ideas for improving my arguments or alternate approaches altogether will be really helpful because my arguments are, of course, not going to be the best we can come up with. I think they're pretty good. I've been doing this a while, but, they're just a starting point, basically. And I'll take suggested approaches and test them, and report the results. I realize that, of course, my testing them is going to be, that data is going to be a drop in the bucket relative to what's required, but it's a start. So, that's my vision for the channel. I'd really, really love to have that data to access. For me, I'd just be fascinated by it in general and want to use it. But I imagine a lot of you would appreciate having that in certain circumstances as well. So yeah, I really hope we can make that happen.